Welcome to Arknights Character Design Reviews. Since this is the first episode, I'll explain how I'm going to be doing these videos. So basically the idea is I'll give my opinions on 3 to 6 characters per video. I'll review the characters roughly in the order that they come out, so if you're wondering when I'm going to get to certain characters, it'll probably be much later if they came out later. But for the characters that came out day 1, I'll be going roughly in star order, so the higher rarity characters will come at the end, and then I'll move on to when new characters came out. Keep in mind that this is my opinion. I haven't played every single event, I haven't gone through every single bit of lore, so I might lack context that would affect my opinion on the characters' designs. But keep in mind this is still my opinion. We all have different opinions. I'll probably disagree with a lot of yours. And also keep in mind this is going to be on a 10-point scale, 1 to 10. There's no decimals, it'll just be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So let's get started with the first character, which will be Amiya. I'll be reviewing all her incarnations. So her design is relatively simple compared to most characters in Arknights. It's not very over the top, and that's because Amiya, since she's the protagonist, she's not a very eccentric character. So it wouldn't make sense to give her an over-the-top design because she's not really an over-the-top kind of character. As you can see, she has the Rhodes Island jacket. Considering she's the leader of Rhodes Island, it's very important to identify her, and it makes sense that since she is the leader of Rhodes Island, that's kind of one of her big defining character traits. It makes sense to have that be front and center. You can even see right on the jacket it says Rhodes Island. She's also got a nice little necktie, so it's not a completely boring design. She does have some traits that make her a little bit more than just boring, like some of the characters that we'll get to soon. For example, you can see on her hand she has these rings. You can also see a little ankle bracelet thing, so it definitely signals that there's something important, because most people don't wear 5 rings, they usually wear just 1. And as you can see, she also has a neutral expression, because while she is the leader of Rhodes Island, she's not exactly the most competent leader. Not to say she's incompetent, but she's still coming to her own, so it kind of shows here. She's more neutral. And now we move on to her E1. So as you can see, there's all these background effects because, she's using her arts, and her arts are pretty strong, so it creates all these weird looking effects in the back. As you can see, she still has a relatively neutral expression. She's still kind of coming into her own at this point. She's developing as a character. But there are some nice little things to note. For example, the wind effects. You can see that her clothing is kind of expanding because the wind is like flapping it around or whatever. As you see, she's also pointing as if she's like using her arts, she's directing them. But since she hasn't fully come into her own yet, she's not directing them very heavily in a specific direction because she's still looking for her direction as the leader of Rhodes Island. And then here we get her E2. This is where her design becomes real sick. As you can see, the background effects are pretty insane. There's like smoke going everywhere. The clothing effects is even more prominent here. So you can tell there's a lot of force just going in all directions. It's so much so that like you can see her hood is actually over her head. It's kind of being held in place by her bunny ears, as if there's being so much force being used by her arts that like she has to keep her hood on her head like held by her bunny ears so that it doesn't just fly off the jacket. As you can see now, she's pointing forward instead of just kind of whatever. She's very focused, and her expression is much more serious to show that she's really grown into her leadership role. And then lastly, we got Guard Amiya. So Guard Amiya is just real sick all around. She's still got a really serious expression. At this point in the story, she's grown so much, and she's really got a handle on what she can do. She's not really indecisive anymore. It's not just, I think I can do this. It's like, no, I will do this. She's very determined at this point, and that really shows in her expression. There's also a lot of other cool details, like the dragons in the background. You can see all these little wavy sort of effects. These wave effects definitely give off an impression of a free-flowing dragon that can kind of just move in all directions. Her arm has this real sick sort of brace thing that has to do with her powers. The sword is just real sick looking. It's got these cool designs. It's also got a nice little glowy effect on it to show that it's like a very important, powerful thing, like some real magical powers coming out of it. You can also see a nice little effect on her ankle bracelet. There's a little blue glowy light to show that her power is activating in like full force. So yeah, overall I'm going to give Amiya a 7 out of 10. Keep in mind that 7 is a good score. It's not a bad score by any means. but I don't want to give her a higher score because there are so many sick designs in this game that if I was to give her a high score, I would have to give everyone a high score, and then I wouldn't be making full use of the full 10-point scale, and I want to make sure I actually do use that. So Amiya gets a 7. Keep in mind, that is definitely still a good score. I do like her design. So next we're going to be moving on to Yato, the first 2-star. 2-star characters really don't have very interesting designs. They're not very strong, they're not really prominent, and it kind of shows in their design. There's nothing that really stands out about them. Yato has, boots, a skirt, a shirt, a Rhodes Island jacket. Probably the most boring sword I've ever seen. The only thing that really makes her stand out is from the head up. She's got a visor. So I guess she's like shy or something, or she doesn't want to show her face for whatever reason. And I guess she's got some sarcos horns and a ponytail, but nothing really stands out. I don't find the design ugly, but there's nothing I find too impressive about it. So I'd probably have to give it a 4 out of 10. Next is Noir. I'm not a big fan of this design. It's a very basic defender design. He's wearing pants, it has some pads on it. He's just holding a shield. He's got a generic Rhodes Island jacket and a t-shirt. He has his face covered, so I can't really tell what he looks like. I think a face is a very important aspect of getting a feel for a character, and you can't even see that. So all you really got is his like scruffy hair and his horn. So overall, I don't really care much for the design, so I probably give him a 2 out of 10. Next, we have Rangers. I am not a furry. I have to make that clear up front. Although I guess in the case of Rangers, he's like a lizard person, so I guess if you were into that stuff, you'd be a scaly, but I'm not that either. So, but despite that, I mean, I would say his design is probably a little bit more interesting than some of the other ones. Instead of like a generic jacket, it kind of looks like a robe-like thing. I don't know, it's a confusing kind of jacket. But he's got some other things like the glove, he's got this like wrap thing on his wrist there. He's got a really cool scarf. I think scarves are pretty cool. So, despite me not being a scaly, I don't think his design is all that terrible. But then again, it's still just a boring 2-star design. So, I guess I'll give him a 3 out of 10. Alright, next we got Durin, the lazy Durin character. I mean, it's in the name. She's too lazy to come up with anything better. I do think the design gets across this laziness quite well. Her facial expression is, well, kind of bland. Like uncaring, I guess. She's got the oversized jacket, something that I think kind of sells her laziness, because lazy people want to feel comfortable, right? And she's got this nice, cozy, huge jacket. Her arms don't even go all the way through, and she's holding her wand through her jacket, which I think is a nice little detail. But besides that, it's not a really interesting design. It's still just a 2-star design. So I guess I'll have to give it a 4 out of 10. And then last of all for this video, we have 12F. He's also a design I'm not a scaly, although I don't even know what he is. Is he like a lizard person or something? A dragon person? I have no idea. I would say his clothing is a little bit more interesting than some of the other ones. He's got, these white strip things. I don't even know what they are, but to make it less boring at least. And he's got some cool traits. Like the jacket says Deus Ex Machina, which is like, if I'm correct, it's supposed to basically mean like plot armor or something. That's what the term means. It's like someone has a special power that comes in at a convenient time. But I'm not sure how that applies to him since he's a 2-star. But I guess it's a nice touch. He's also holding what I think is a radio. Not really sure. And then he has some like words on his leg. I don't even know what it says. I can't read that. So his outfit is not bad, but I mean, he's still a generic 2-star character. And I don't know, I don't really like the scaly shit. His face looks weird. I don't even know what he is. So I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. So that's it for this video. If you liked the video, then I would encourage you to subscribe and give a comment or a like. Maybe tell me your opinions on these characters. I'd love to see what you think about them. Maybe you'll spot something that I didn't spot, and maybe something interesting to consider. Thanks for watching.